Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Verlicity AI Podcast. I'm Christian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffin. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the pace of AI? Are you suffering from AI revolution fatigue?
Gee, maybe we could start a trend and call it #ARF.
I don't think that's going to catch on. But AI revolution fatigue is definitely a thing. Today's episode is going to explore the ways you can cope and even thrive in a world that's being turned upside down by AI. We see it every day. People are overwhelmed with the constant waves of announcements, and they fear that their jobs will be threatened, so this is only further amplifying the fatigue.
It's really moving fast. Major announcements have almost become expected. If a company like Anthropic or Google or OpenAI doesn't come out with something mind-blowing every week, it feels like they're falling behind. We never saw this pace of change in previous tech revolutions, and most of the announcements are about developments that will completely upend entire industries. The pace of technological change is greater now than at any other time in human history. This is not an illusion. #ARF may never be a viral hashtag, but it captures how this wave of technology can feel.
Yeah, I definitely feel a bit overwhelmed at times. If you think back to big historical events that interrupted life as we know it, wars come to mind. Wars were often periods of massive, rapid technological advancement. They were huge catalysts for change. Although this isn't a war in a classical sense, it's a peacetime explosion of technological development that rivals any war.
And it's not isolated to any one part of our lives. In seemingly every domain, the pace has accelerated exponentially. Take biology, for instance. What used to take years of lab work can now be done with incredible accuracy in a fraction of the time.
And if you want something we can all relate to, think about film and video creation. With tools like OpenAI's Sora or Google's VO3, the ability to generate mind-blowingly realistic video from text prompts is here. Movies that would have cost tens of millions of dollars and taken years of complex CGI work to create can now potentially be produced in a matter of hours.
It is mind-blowing, and here's the thing. We live and breathe AI. And even we can barely keep up with the new announcements, let alone become intimately familiar with most of the tools being produced. Imagine how it feels for people outside the direct tech sphere.
Exactly. We've had transformative tech waves before. We had the PC revolution, the internet and the web, mobile phones. Those developments brought enormous change and a flurry of announcements. But none of those technologies had the immediate order of magnitude disruptive effect across so many sectors simultaneously as we're seeing. Entire industries are being upended, not in years, but in months.
Just ask educators. They can often point to the ChatGPT moment in late 2022, when the world of education and many other fields palpably changed almost overnight. The capabilities were suddenly undeniable and accessible. If your industry hasn't yet had a ChatGPT moment, it won't be long. AI is coming for every job in some form. Even physical jobs are soon going to be targeted by AI-enabled robots.
And all this relentless, accelerating change raises a profound and ongoing question, which is really the core of our discussion today. How are we, as individuals and as a society, going to cope with this rate of change?
In today's episode, we're going to explore the implications of this kind of change and the techniques you can use to protect yourself and succeed.
Our focus in this episode is practical. We're going to give you a blueprint to follow. We want to emphasize and maybe even warn you that previous tech revolutions were fast, but compared to AI, they were slowpokes.
We were able to adapt organically to the internet or mobile phones, but this time is different. It's going to take a conscious effort. You're going to need a plan, and most importantly, you need to take action. If you snooze, you'll definitely lose.
So today we're going to get you started on your AI evolution, your plan of action. A key part of any change in life is psychology. The AI revolution is no exception, and we are seeing a number of obstacles that threaten to derail your success.
Yes. When we talk about coping with change, Sandra, psychology is as important as the strategy. There's certainly a psychological aspect, and it's incredibly important. There are lots of people who are excited by change, but there are many people who get overwhelmed and anxious by the constant flux.
That's true, and we will move beyond just the feelings and delve into tangible strategies. But dealing with your mindset is key.
The first step is to address a common human response to overwhelming change: denial. Denial is a natural defense mechanism when change hits that's too big or too fast. The inclination can be to downplay, to think, "This too shall pass," or "It won't affect me," to be paralyzed.
And in the context of AI, denial can be detrimental, even dangerous. Ignoring or underestimating the scale and speed of this transformation at best means missing opportunities and, at worst, being caught completely unprepared. This isn't a localized storm. It's a global change of technology in every field.
Another common reaction is what people in the field of decision psychology call the cry wolf effect.
Yeah, we've all experienced the predictions about a new technology, and then the predictions are wildly off. A good example is driverless cars, which coincidentally use AI technology. People have been predicting the rise of autonomous cars for a number of years, but it always seems they are 5 more years away.
It's easy to get cynical. After all, the cynics are proven right time after time, until they are proven wrong. We hear the cynics cry wolf so frequently that eventually we block it out.
To make things worse, we humans tend towards a phenomena called the normalcy bias, in which we assume the future will be a lot like the past. But change is inevitable, and when it comes, it upsets that assumption. So what's the risk for people right now?
The risk is that they kid themselves into thinking this time isn't different, but it is. The AI models that threaten to completely upend your job are already in the testing phase. For that matter, depending on where you live, driverless cars are coming to your city next year, or they are already deployed. So pay attention. The wolf is at your door.
That's true. This is no longer a research and development problem. It's mostly a matter of logistics. This is happening, and the cynics are about to get a rude surprise.
I don't want you to take our word for it. Look at the numbers. This month, Google announced a staggering statistic. They reported a 50 times increase in the number of AI tokens being used by their Gemini users in just 1 year. They are comparing AI tokens used last month to the same month last year.
For our listeners, AI tokens are essentially a unit of computing resource used by an AI service to process a query and produce an answer. Tokens are a direct measure of the total work these AI systems are doing. Imagine a shovel and think of an AI token as 1 shovel load of AI work. Then imagine a 50 times increase in a year. This is an almost unbelievable growth rate for any technology at that scale.
Just imagine if there was a growth of 50 times in the number of farm tractors used in the world in just 1 year. You'd be wondering, where are all the new farms? Or try this on for size. Imagine you lived 10 minutes from your job and suddenly the commute increased by 50 times. That would stretch your 10-minute commute to 8 hours. That's what 50 times would feel like in the physical world. Frankly, nothing in the physical world grows by 50 times in a year. It's a crazy number.
AI tokens are exactly like a tractor pulling a plow, only instead of pulling farming equipment, they are pushing the pace of technological change. AI may not be a physical phenomena, but the effects are manifesting in the physical world. When a computer programmer loses her job to an AI, that's real, that's tangible.
And we're talking about a measurable indicator. AI tokens require electrical energy, and they produce results in the real world. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing this explosion across the board. We're seeing the applications of AI cropping up in our daily lives. This isn't hype. It's a quantifiable adoption and usage that has a demonstrable real-world impact. This technology is already having an impact in our daily lives.
And the trajectory doesn't show signs of slowing. There are now multimodal AI systems that can understand and generate text, images, audio, video, and more. As they become more integrated into every aspect of our lives, the effects will be felt more broadly in areas we haven't seen yet.
As so-called world models, AI systems capable of interpreting and understanding the physical world in tangible terms enter the market, we're anticipating the pace of this change to accelerate. World models are a game changer in robotics.
And don't forget AI agents, autonomous systems that can perform tasks and make decisions on our behalf. As these AI agents become commonplace, this rate of change is almost certainly going to accelerate further.
We know it's a lot to take in, and it can be overwhelming. Frankly, if you're not overwhelmed, you're probably not seeing the whole problem. And we haven't even touched on the more distant future projections, like the potential for billions of AI-powered humanoid robots operating in our world within the next decade or two. That's a paradigm shift that's hard to even fully conceptualize right now. As you look around your home and office, you don't see a robot today. But credible estimates indicate that bipedal robots will be as common as cars in the next decade, and all of these machines will be controlled by AI.
So if you're in any kind of denial or in the grips of cynicism, this is the moment you need to snap out of it, because this is not going away.
Yeah, we all know people in older generations who checked out, who basically didn't fully embrace the internet or mobile revolutions. Parents or grandparents who are locked out of significant aspects of modern life because they chose to deny those revolutions. They paid a social cost. Maybe it cost them a job at the end of their careers, or they have trouble communicating with loved ones because they don't know how to use technology. But the AI revolution is hitting young and old alike.
I think that's an important point that needs to be emphasized. Denial is a choice. You can stick your head in the sand, or you can stand up and take notice. But either way, it's your choice. For the moment, you are in charge.
Okay, we don't want to sound histrionic, but we think it's important to accept that it's a normal human impulse to freeze and hope the moment will pass. This is not going away. It's not a fad. This situation will not reward inaction. This is a moment of fundamental change, unlike anything that any generation of humans has ever faced.
It truly is. But there's some really good news. And this brings us to a fundamental truth about our species. Humans are incredibly adaptive creatures. Our ability to learn, change, and adapt to new environments and challenges is arguably what sets us apart from every other animal on this planet. It's the primary reason many would say that we're running the show on this planet. So the good news is that we're built to deal with change.
Now there's a bit of irony here. AI, which is entirely our own creation, our own brainchild, has now presented us with what might be the single biggest adaptive challenge in human history.
And how we respond to this challenge, individually, collectively, as businesses, as nations, will arguably be the defining story of our time. It's not just about new gadgets. It's about the evolution of work, creativity, society, and perhaps even what it means to be human.
So we've established the speed and scale. But for a moment, before we climb into the practicalities of dealing with this situation, I want to address the elephant in the room. Some listeners might still be thinking, we've been through big tech changes before. The internet was a huge deal. How is AI truly different?
That's a fair question. The internet revolution was massive, It reshaped communication, commerce, and information access. But there are a few key differences with AI, particularly generative AI.
Firstly, there's the huge leap in the speed of capability. The huge increase in AI capabilities, especially in areas like natural language understanding and generation image and code generation, has been incredibly fast. With the internet, the foundational infrastructure, dial-up, then broadband, then mobile, took several decades to mature and become widely available.
Yes, we've gone from decades to minutes. AI tools with startling capabilities are appearing daily. Since everyone already has a phone in their pocket, these capabilities get pushed into people's lives instantly.
Then there's the breadth of impact. While the internet touches many areas, AI is poised to impact almost every job role and industry sector more directly and deeply.
It's not just about information access. It's about task automation, content creation, decision support, and problem solving across the board.
And there's the generative power. Previous technologies were largely about distributing or processing existing information.
Generative AI creates novel content. This has profound implications for creative industries, for information integrity, for coding, for scientific discovery, you name it.
And finally, there's accessibility. Many powerful AI tools became widely available to the public almost instantly. Think of ChatGPT, and many of them offer a free service along with paid services.
This is a big one. The rapid democratization of highly advanced technology is different from the early days of specialized software or internet access that required significant investment or technical know-how. A person can become a user with zero training and zero cost. All the normal economic rules relating to friction in a market have gone out the window.
It's that combination of speed, breadth, generative power, and accessibility that makes this current AI wave feel so unique and, for many, so disruptive. The ChatGPT moment really crystallized this. It wasn't a gradual realization for many. It was a sudden, wow, this changes things experience.
And that wow is quickly followed by what now? So this leads us to the core of our discussion. Now we need to talk about practical strategies. Today we're going to outline how you can navigate and evolve to meet this challenge.
All right, let's get into the practical advice. To begin with, we need to address some of the big picture factors that you need to internalize before you can thrive in an AI world. At this point, we're assuming a few things. That you accept that this rate of change is the new norm, that denial isn't an option, and that this is not the same as previous technological shifts. Imagine, this was a situation where the 5 stages of grief were applicable. We're going to assume you're at acceptance.
Okay, let's dig in. The first step is a mindset shift. We need to embrace lifelong learning as a core tenet, not just as a good idea, but as a fundamental necessity. The idea of learning a skill and coasting for decades is over.
Curiosity and a willingness to constantly learn new things are paramount. Learning is the new normal. Our prescription for this new world doesn't involve a one-time solution. You're not going to be able to learn something today and sit back for the rest of your life. Change is not just the new normal, it's going to be your number one job in the future.
We also need to cultivate adaptability and resilience. Your adaptability quotient, or AQ, is becoming as important, if not more so, than IQ or EQ.
All of your ancestors would be proud. They all adapted so you can be here today. In the new AI world, how quickly you can unlearn old ways and learn new ones will define your success.
Your success will depend on how you bounce back from the disorientation of change. This may sound simple, but think of it this way. If you prepare yourself for the inevitability that you're going to be regularly knocked off your feet, you won't be surprised when it happens.
It's too bad that people who were adults in the 1930s aren't still around to teach us this type of resilience. The Great Depression produced a cohort of people who knew a thing or two about getting up when they were knocked down. The key is to be ready and not go into shock when it happens, because it's going to happen.
Now that we've frightened the hell out of you, you need to move from a scarcity mindset to an opportunity mindset. It's easy to focus on what might be lost, for example, job roles or status. But it's more empowering to focus on what can be gained, new tools to augment your abilities, new types of roles emerging, new problems to solve.
You need to reorient yourself to see the opportunities, which is difficult. Instead of nursing your bruises when you're knocked down, you need to be looking for the opportunities that open up.
Economists have a term that applies here. They call it loss aversion. We fear loss more than we value gain because it's baked into our caveman brains. Our ancestors knew that a loss of food could mean death, and a surplus was a problem because we can only eat so much at a time and food was hard to preserve. So we evolved to fear loss intensely. To our ancestors, loss often meant death. You need to overcome this mentality to survive in an AI-dominated world, because when everything changes, lots of stuff gets lost in translation. If you're constantly looking in the rearview mirror at things that are lost, you're not going to see the opportunities that are coming your way.
Those mindset points are crucial. So now, let's talk about skill development. Everyone is obsessed with the skills AI will displace, but it's also going to require skills.
Yes, you're going to need to focus on human-centric skills. These are skills that AI, at least for now, struggles to replicate authentically. For example, genuine creativity and originality, not just pattern recognition, and sophisticated emotional intelligence for collaboration and leadership.
Creativity, originality, and emotional intelligence are skills that our school system has been historically poor at developing, but these are your superpowers. Remember that AI will lower the execution cost of new ideas by making long development cycles shorter, so you can afford more ideas and you can afford to be wrong more often as a result.
This is a really important point, and we hope you take it on board. Being wrong in the age of AI will cost a lot less. We will need to rewire our minds to be less averse to taking chances and trying ideas that would have previously been very costly.
For example, let's say you have an idea. Your job requires a task that takes a lot of time, and you think you have a way to make that task less time-consuming. Let's say you think a piece of software or an AI agent could make that problem go away. Before AI, it would have taken your company months or years to write the software to make that problem go away. It would have been a risky venture. But now you can make a prototype in an afternoon by interacting with the AI. Even if you're wrong and your idea doesn't work out, you've only blown a few hours. And if you're right, you've just saved your company a huge amount of money. The rules have changed. It's okay to try things that might not work out. So let your originality be your strength. Take some chances and be okay with failure.
You also need to learn to collaborate with AI. This is key. It's not about humans versus AI. In this revolution, humans plus AI are the winning team.
Learn to become an AI-augmented worker. This means learning how to use AI tools effectively in your field. Become an AI whisperer, understanding an AI's strengths and limitations, using it to automate mundane tasks so you can focus on higher value work. From this point forward, approach every problem with the attitude that you're going to use AI in every possible way. You always start a task by asking, could I use AI to make this easier? Don't think of using AI as a dereliction of duty. You're not being lazy if you use the AI, you're being smart. It's your duty to use AI whenever it makes sense, and it's your job to figure out how it will work. In military terms, you can think of AI as a force multiplier. With AI, you become a bigger force. The workers who take this attitude will be the ones who survive the change.
You'll also need to develop digital dexterity and AI literacy. You don't need to become an AI programmer, but you do need to understand the basic principles of how AI works, its potential biases, and its ethical implications.
We don't think of keyboard literacy as a skill today because everyone knows how to type into a computer. But there was a time in the 1990s when most people had never used a computer. The ability to type was a skill people listed on their resumes. AI literacy is a required skill today. Find the tools that are applicable in your field immediately and start using them now. Don't wait. If the tools are critical in your field, I strongly recommend you sign up for more than one service. These are early days, and you can't know which AI tool or service will be the winner in this gold rush. So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Excellent points. And with the flood of information and AI-generated content, information management and critical discernment are vital. We all need to become much better at managing the information we use with AIs. And I think you'll be surprised by how many information sources come into play as you consider this new dimension to your life.
Firstly, you'll need to become a better curator of your information diet. Be selective about your sources.
Remember to follow trusted experts and organizations, but also be open to diverse perspectives. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of AI news.
And develop strong media literacy for AI content. Learn to critically evaluate information, especially as AI makes it easier to create convincing but potentially misleading or false content, deepfakes, and misinformation.
Yes, fact-checking and source verification are more important than ever.
Learn to practice just-in-time learning. You can't learn everything about every new AI tool.
Focus on learning what's relevant to your goals and needs now, while maintaining an awareness of broader trends.
Finally, you need the skills of active experimentation and engagement.
Yes, don't be afraid to play around. Many AI tools offer free trials or basic versions. Set aside some time to tinker with them, even if it's not directly related to your job.
Hands-on experience demystifies the technology and can spark ideas. You're not just learning a new tool, you're learning a new way of seeing the world.
Seek out communities of practice. Join online forums, professional groups, or local meetups focused on AI in your field.
You can't do this by yourself. Learning from peers, sharing experiences, and discussing challenges can be incredibly valuable. If you haven't got a group yet, find one fast. Reframe failure as learning. Not every AI tool you try will be a game changer for you. Not every new skill you attempt will come easily.
That's okay. The goal is continuous exploration and adaptation. Get in touch with your inner child who learned about the world by trying things that didn't always work. Take some risks.
These individual strategies are about building personal resilience and capability. It's about taking agency in a rapidly changing world.
Now let's focus on what we think is the most important aspect of this transformation. The one lesson we hope you'll take away today that will completely alter the way you look at the AI revolution and your role in the new economy.
I want you to imagine you were a sharecrop farmer in the 1930s. These were incredibly poor farmers who didn't own the land they farmed. They paid for the land by sharing a predetermined portion of their produce with the landowner. It was a horrible deal because the farmer shouldered all the risk. If the crops failed for any reason, and they failed frequently, the landowner got paid and the farmer starved.
You do not want to be farming on someone else's land. It's a recipe for failure. Those poor sharecroppers thought they had no choice, but eventually the choice was made for them. The landowners brought in machines to farm the land because it was cheaper than even a starving farmer.
Imagine these poor farmers had an impossibly horrible job that left them in a permanent state of poverty, and it took a machine to kick them off the land. They would have stayed in those horrible jobs if they had not been forced to leave.
The transition was extremely hard, but it led to a much better life working in factories, where the pay and benefits were much better. It took the rise of the machines, in this case tractors and harvesters, to push these reluctant farmers into a far better life.
We don't want to give the impression this was easy. If you want to be transported into that time, I highly recommend reading John Steinbeck's novel, Grapes of Wrath. In the final chapter of the book, he beautifully describes the despair felt by these poor people. The human cost of that transition was terrible, but in the end, there's no doubt that the descendants of those farmers were better off.
Today, people are hand-wringing about the AI apocalypse. They are worried that AI will throw them out of their jobs. Frankly, they are right about the last part. The jobs are going, but the worry is unproductive. The natural impulse is to find a way to stop the world and keep things the way they are today. That won't work.
But here's the big question. Is there a way to move past the worry, to soften the blow, and move into a more prosperous future without being a victim? The answer is an emphatic yes.
Think of those sharecroppers in the 1930s. Had they left on a good year, when they had a little money in their pocket, gone to a city and trained to be a factory worker, they would have been better off. To be clear, we think your choices in this revolution are far more attractive.
So now that you have a context for the situation, what's your next step?
To understand your next step, you need to accept a simple fact about progress. The march of technology doesn't happen in isolation. There are knock-on effects to everything that happens.
When humans invented the wheel, someone lost a job carrying things on his back and someone got a job making and fixing wheels. Technology has progressed this way since humans started inventing new technologies.
AI is going to give birth to a lot of jobs that we can't imagine right now. But we can make some educated guesses about the nature of those jobs and the skills that will be rewarded.
Yes, predicting the exact job title or the precise way in which society will be reorganized as the economy adapts to AI is a mug's game. Before social media, would anyone have predicted jobs like social media manager or influencer? I certainly didn't see those jobs coming.
But thankfully, you don't need to be a fortune teller. You don't need a crystal ball. You just need to pay attention to the general trend. If you place your bets on general observations, you're less likely to be wrong.
So let's look at these trends and see what they say about our role in this new economy. Think of it this way. If you were a sharecropper in the 1930s and you had instantaneous access to the world's news on a smartphone, as you do today, that sharecropper would have seen tractors and harvesters coming and got the hell out of farming.
So let's generalize and see where this gets us. There are 3 simple observations that we think are obvious, and they tell us where we should be applying our efforts.
Firstly, AI agents, and in due course AI-enabled robotics, are going to make repetitive tasks, even complicated repetitive tasks, obsolete.
Yes. In fact, we have a rule of thumb in our organization. If we see a task that recurs every week and it takes more than 15 minutes per week, we consider it a candidate for automation. Obviously, this won't work for everything right away, but as the AI tools improve, you need to be reevaluating these tasks and asking whether they should be automated. So look at your life in 15-minute increments and identify these tasks.
Secondly, you want to be the agent of change. The people who will be valued in this new economy are going to be the ones who manage AI. You want to think of yourself as the head of a team of AI agents and tools. You're in charge, not the technology. Perhaps you should memorize this tagline, be a manager, not a minion. You're in charge.
In the AI economy, the minions get replaced by machines. Managers get ahead. You want to be the person coming up with ways to use AI to improve efficiency. If you do this, you won't have to worry about automating yourself out of a job. It's quite the opposite. You'll become indispensable.
At first, you may find this concept a little insulting. The idea that a person who does work is a minion is a bit offensive to our working class values. It implies that a hard worker is either a sucker or they are disposable. We both grew up in working class homes, and we certainly don't have anything against hard work. But you know the old saying, work smart, not hard.
That's true. You wouldn't look admiringly at someone hauling cargo by hand on the road when we can all drive cars and trucks. People who fail to use technology get left behind. It's always been that way. This general principle hasn't changed just because we have AI.
And thirdly, you need to learn to collaborate with the AI. In an earlier episode, we discussed the concept of human plus machine, developed by Garry Kasparov, the chess grandmaster. You should check it out on the Verlicity AI Podcast. You'll find that episode on YouTube and all the major podcast services. You need to see AI as an extension of yourself. Look for AI tools that have interfaces that seem intuitive and learn to use these interfaces collaboratively.
If you've ever watched a skilled craftsman using a tool, that's the way you need to see AI. The tool, in this case AI, has to be second nature. And this is probably going to be a challenge for those of us who didn't grow up with AI. Future generations who grow up with this technology and are AI natives will see our struggle as quaint.
Yes, we're the generation straddling both worlds, the world before AI and the world with AI. So this is going to be the hardest aspect of the adaptation for us. But what you need to do is put in the time and focus on tasks that are relevant in your field. If you focus on an AI-first approach, where you always reach for the AI in your work, you'll soon discover that you've reached something comparable to the mythical 10,000 hours.
So if you get nothing else from this episode, we hope you'll internalize these 3 basic ideas. Focus on repetitive tasks that come up frequently in your work. Embrace the role of manager and don't glorify hard work. You want to be a manager, not a minion. Learn to collaborate with the AI. Make it an extension of yourself.
While individual strategies are crucial, the scale of this AI-driven change also necessitates broader societal adaptations. We can't just put the onus entirely on individuals.
Absolutely. This is where institutions, governments, and industries need to step up.
We need to reimagine education. Educational systems, from kindergarten to 12 to higher education and vocational training, need to adapt much more quickly. This means integrating AI literacy, focusing on those human-centric skills we discussed, and fostering lifelong learning pathways.
We can't afford to make the mistakes that were made during the PC revolution, the rise of social media, or the proliferation of mobile phones. Education was very slow to adapt, and we paid a price. We need to figure out how to teach students to use AI tools ethically and effectively, rather than just trying to ban them.
Governments need to carefully develop ethical frameworks and governance, but this work needs to be done in a way that doesn't impede AI progress.
We are already witnessing an overzealous approach in Europe, and Europe is falling behind as a result. AI companies are taking much longer to roll out services in Europe, and it's also having an impact on research and development. Governments need to tread lightly, or they risk becoming an impediment to success.
Governments can be a force for good if they invest in reskilling and upskilling. Societies need to invest massively in programs that help the workforce adapt.
This includes accessible and affordable training for new skills, especially for those whose jobs are most likely to be impacted by AI. The trick is to avoid trying to prop up industries that are going to die and focus on skills that will enable workers to participate in the future economy.
And as always, sticking our heads in the sand won't work. Government needs to play a role in fostering public dialogue and trust. There needs to be an ongoing, informed public conversation about AI, its benefits, its risks, and its societal implications.
Building public trust requires transparency from developers and policymakers.
These are huge, complex challenges, and there are no easy answers, but they are conversations we must be having and acting upon with urgency. The idea of discovery hegemony that we discussed in a previous episode also comes into play here, ensuring that access to and understanding of these powerful tools doesn't become concentrated in too few hands.
It's about creating a society that is not just reactive to AI, but proactively shaping its development and integration in a way that aligns with human values and promotes widespread benefit.
So, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the unprecedented pace of the AI revolution to the dangers of denial and cynicism, and most importantly, practical strategies for individuals and society to adapt and thrive.
The key takeaway, if there's one thing we want listeners to remember, is that while this wave of change is immense, we humans are fundamentally adaptive. Our capacity to learn, innovate, and adjust is our greatest asset. The AI revolution, created by us, is now calling upon our core strength like never before.
It's not about having all the answers right now. No one does. It's about adopting a mindset of continuous learning, critical engagement, and proactive adaptation. Don't wait for the future to happen to you. Actively participate in shaping your response to it.
And don't give in to the urge to look for the things that will be lost in this change. It's easy to get stuck in a cycle of worry and become paralyzed.
Remember that while adaptation is our superpower, loss aversion is our kryptonite. If you get stuck in a negative cycle, you'll be left behind. And remember the 3 key takeaways. Focus on eliminating repetitive tasks. Be a manager, not a minion. And treat AI as an extension of yourself.
The biggest story of our time isn't just the AI itself. It's how humanity rises to meet this adaptive challenge. Each of us has a role to play in that story by choosing curiosity over fear, action over apathy, and collaboration over isolation.
We encourage you to start experimenting with some of the strategies we discussed. Pick one new AI tool to explore it this month. Find a 15-minute task in your life that you can automate. Have a conversation with colleagues or friends about how AI is impacting your world. Join an online community dedicated to AI in your field. Take one small step towards active adaptation, and then take another step. This is a journey.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your biggest concerns or excitements about the AI revolution? What strategies are you finding helpful for coping with this rate of change?
Share your experiences with us at verlicity.ai or tag us at Verlicity AI on your favorite social media platform. Your insights are part of this collective learning journey. We're all on this ride together.
And as always, please share this podcast with anyone you think would find this conversation valuable. You'll find us on all the popular podcast apps and on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss our ongoing explorations into the ever-evolving world of AI.
Thank you for joining us on the Verlicity AI Podcast. I'm Christian Worthington.
And I'm Sandra Giffin. Until next time, stay curious, lean into this technology, adapt, and embrace the journey.